We're going to France now, where the government of President Emmanuel Macron has narrowly survived a no-confidence motion in Parliament. A second motion is also unlikely to succeed. The votes were triggered by opposition parties after the government pushed divisive pension reforms through Parliament without a vote. The proposed plan has sparked violent protests across France. So let's go to Paris and bring in Lisa Lewis, our correspondent there. Lisa, the no-confidence vote was rejected. Does that mean that Macron and his government are now safe?
Well, safe in that the Macron government is not going to come down immediately because, you know, the vote of no confidence was rejected. But that doesn't mean that, politically speaking, the president is in shallow waters just yet. There is a lot of protests. There are lots of protests going on in Paris and across the country, and people are watching the situation very closely. Politically speaking, there is a second vote of confidence planned for later on this evening. However, that one is very unlikely to succeed because it was launched by the far-right party Rassemblement National. There are other judicial means that the opposition parties will try in the coming days and weeks, going to the Constitutional Court and also launching a referendum because they want the French to vote on this reform themselves.
Now, will this end the protests, or can we expect more?
It's kind of triggering more anger within, you know, the general population. There were protest movements over the past few weeks, several days of nationwide strikes and demonstrations, but the number of participants had gone down until last Thursday, when suddenly the government decided to use this exceptional constitutional power to push through the pension reform, the controversial pension reform, without a vote by the National Assembly. And it seems that people are really angry about that. Protesters have taken to the streets again over the past few days, a few thousand every day here in Paris, and some of them have been saying, you know, I was initially in favor of this reform, but because the government used this exceptional power, I'm now against it, and I'm turning out to protest against that. There is another nationwide day of strikes planned for this Thursday, and everybody's looking at that day, will be watching events that day, obviously very closely, to see if more people will turn out then than during the last day of strikes.
And Lisa, briefly, if you can, why is Macron then sticking with these reform plans, despite this massive backlash?
For him, it's important for his image. He wants to show that he's a strong statesman on a national, but also on an international level, to be able to continue to take part in international negotiations, for example, concerning the Russian invasion in Ukraine. It's also the masterpiece of his second term in power. But obviously, this is not going down very well with the population here, because the government has also been a bit not very agile in explaining why this reform was needed. So it seems like this has not really worked, at least not on a national level. You know, it's not really polishing up his image right now.
Lisa Lewis in Paris there. Thank you, Lisa.